All right, welcome one and all. Welcome to the Valley of the Sunday Scaries podcast. This is episode 1. You'll notice that I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, so I decided I would wear a very ironic Hawaiian t-shirt, put on some sunglasses. It's January 5th, and I just want to kind of create the illusion that I am living in paradise. And you know what? I kind of am. If we're being completely honest and truthful here, I say this is episode 1, and this is the first podcast that we're taping here. But between you and I taped an entire podcast already, and I realized that the microphone wasn't on. So none of the words that I said that you could hear came through. And here we are during the second run, aka Valley of the Sunday Scaries, episode 1. So I'm just going to kick things off here. I wanted to read the Urban Dictionary definition of Sunday Scaries, if you are unfamiliar with them. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably are aware of them because we're all going through them virtually every single day. But it's the feeling you have after a long week of work, followed by a Friday and Saturday full of binge drinking, when Sunday hits you question your entire existence. Typically characterized by laying in bed all day and both regretting past decisions and questioning your seemingly non-existent future. Thoughts like, I'm going to die alone, and will I ever have a job that I actually enjoy? Consume you for the entire day while you're battling a hangover. The definition is good, but the use it in a sentence was even better. Wow, I haven't seen Chad all day. He must have a bad case of the Sunday Scaries. Well, there you have it. For those of us that are kind of approaching our later 20s, the Sunday Scaries basically define our every single day. Every day is a Sunday Scary for us based on that definition. So even if you spend an entire sober weekend, you'll still have that nice crippling anxiety heading into Sunday night. Your quarter life crisis is just one please hold, because that is the sound of my hot tub that just turned on. So we're not going to have a podcast with the hot tub turned on. One moment, please. All right, and we are back. For those playing at home, I have now had to restart this a couple of times. I recorded an entire podcast that was not recorded with the microphone on, just checking to make sure this one's still on. And then the hot tub that the camera is on right now just started turning on and rumbling. So we're off to a great start for the first episode. Now, I can't claim credit for the Sunday Scary portion of Valley of the Sunday Scaries. That would be from one of my best friends growing up from school. His name is Derek. He's been in like all the articles, so I'm sure that he's probably going to watch this and read this, because everyone that's been in the articles and the blogs and the posts and the podcasts, they seem to enjoy it a lot more than people that aren't in them. So as crazy as that sounds. But when he told me about it, I kind of just took it, I ran with it, I loved it, and I designed an entire 52-week essentially goal around it. So as you lay in bed and it's late Sunday evening, you're procrastinating the work week or the school week, or maybe you're driving on the way in right now to work, it's Monday morning, at your coffee in your car. The idea is that you just pop this on. It's not gonna be too long, maybe 15 minutes of comedy, which is mainly at my expense. Maybe I'll talk about some inspiration, the vision of going through a quarter life crisis. That's kind of the idea of this whole thing. So enjoy it. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you want to hear about. Maybe you're going through a quarter life crisis too, and you're kind of dealing with some similar stuff. Send me some questions. I'd be happy to, answer them on the podcast. So I think it's important to note that my life is not in shambles currently. I'm happily married. I have a great job at a company that I love. I just moved across the country. I'm in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. At least it was sunny the first time we recorded the podcast. It's 70 degrees right now, hence the Hawaiian shirt. But I'm doing just fine. And I think that just fine is kind of the problem with the whole thing. I think that you get to a point in your life where just fine eventually will spread like a disease and will lead you to 20 years waking up and going, man, I just did not seize the most out of my life, and I don't want just fine to define me. And that's why a lot of these passions that I've had bubbling over and things I've wanted to do for a long time, I'm just starting to do them because I don't want to be just fine. Now, like I said in the beginning, at the taping of this, once again, checking to make sure the mic is on. It's January 5th, 2020. If you were scrolling Twitter a couple days ago, you would see that World War III is currently trending. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the podcast, but I hope that I have enough time to run my course of my quarter life crisis. But on the off chance that I do, and we don't kind of move past the brink of existence, there are a few things I've learned so far while going through the crisis that I just want to share. Number one, you're going to be okay. It's taken me a while to realize that, but you're going to be okay. Number two, you got to be patient. There's too many things that I want to happen right away that if I'm not patient, they're not going to happen, and that's part of the problem. And number three, you got to take chances. Hence the move across the country. I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona. I've never lived outside of Michigan. I'm all for chances right now, and I think that's a huge part of your quarter life crisis. So I just put out a blog post yesterday about New Year's resolutions, and if you haven't got a chance to read it yet, spoiler alert, I don't think they're very attainable, and the way people go about them is a disaster. Somewhere either here, down, around, I'm going to put the link for the article if you want to get dive in and get a chance to read it. But I guess you could say that my entire 2020 is just going to be one giant everly evolving New Year's resolution in a way, because there are so many things that I want to accomplish this year, and based on the definition of a resolution and goal setting, all that stuff, I guess you could say it is. I think that the resolution in itself, when I want to lose weight or whatever it might be, I just don't think that's very attainable. But if you do things correctly and you line up all your goals, there are things you can accomplish in the course of a year, and that's kind of the goal. And hence, number one, I'm doing the podcast thing. I'm doing the blog thing. I'm trying to stick to that, and I'll kind of cover that more here in a sec. So I just want to take a quick break because the reason I'm whispering is that all the houses around me, people are now outside, and I didn't plan on any of my neighbors being outside. They're just watching TV, and dogs are barking and stuff, but I'm just going to power through this, and I hope they enjoy the content, and I hope they enjoy the podcast, because I can't stop now. I'm losing daylight currently. Anyway, I promised myself that if I moved across the country, I wouldn't do the same stuff I was doing back in Michigan. So on Saturdays and Sundays, they weren't going to be spent, crushing Netflix or getting sucked into a video game. No, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to still watch Netflix shows and still play video games, but only after I've accomplished something. For instance, putting out a blog post or, tackling a passion of mine or going to work out or going to grocery shop, things like that. Then I'll go ahead and I'll watch a show or something like that. But too many times I just wake up at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and just tackle that all day. There's like a bird chirping, and it's super loud, and I don't know if you can hear it. If you can't, this is just really bad radio. If you can, I guess that's also bad radio, but we're going to power through. So here is me putting myself out there to the world. I don't know how global this whole thing is going to get, but there's nothing, no bigger way to hold yourself accountable than by videotaping yourself and by writing blog posts and just putting yourself out there. So these are the things that I'm tackling this month and, I guess this year, but you got to start somewhere. So number one is this, right? I'm trying to put out content weekly. I'm trying to make sure that I have a blog post. I have a video podcast out every single week in the year of 2020. Sometimes I'll have a little bit more content than others, but bare minimum, I'm trying to force myself to really get creative and just kind of express, what the quarter life crisis is all about. And the only way to do that is with consistency. So number two, my wife and I are big time into some big changes in our life, and we're doing something called Plant Paradox, and it's not like a weird diet or a fad where I can't eat meat or I'm going vegan or vegetarian or something crazy like that, but part of my issues is that I just haven't been feeling very healthy, and Plant Paradox kind of lines up with a lot of the foods that I already enjoy eating, and the goal of it is to kind of promote stomach health, and that's something I think I'm super lacking in right now, so me and her, taking that on. Before I get to number three, the bird is so loud. I'm so sorry. If you can hear this bird, I'm very, very sorry. And if you can't hear the bird, you probably think I'm going crazy, but I'm very sorry about either way, whether you can or can't hear it, because I'm just interrupting myself at this point. So number three, yes, I am going to be going to the gym. I'm not going to be going to lose a certain amount of weight. I'm just trying to consistently make sure I'm going there and feeling better about myself. I'm using an app on my phone called Fitbod to kind of track my workouts and to give me ideas of what to work out with. with. And so I'm hoping that holds me accountable. It sends me an alert every couple of days if I haven't been there. But I'm almost turning 30 years old. Health is a big deal to me right now. I'm not looking to get jacked or have a six-pack. I just want to be healthier. So it kind of lines up with what I'm looking to do. And then number four, I'm looking to just read more this year, and the only way to start reading more is by starting a book. And so I'm reading the 5 a.m. Club right now. I just feel like people that are successful people, they get up earlier than everybody else, and they do more with themselves in the morning. Okay, now there's a giant plane flying above me, and I gotta assume you guys can hear this. If you can't hear this, it's insanely loud. The bird hasn't stopped, and the plane just flew over. Everything's going off the rails at this point. But those are the goals for 2020, and more specifically for January of 2020. I like to view things on a more monthly, quarterly basis than a whole yearly basis. I just think it gives you a better opportunity to get stuff done. I challenge all of you to build a plan and to set small, tiny goals that you can begin to crush and knock off, and it just helps you build momentum throughout, setting your goals. If you set these too large, grandiose goals, they typically don't get attained. They don't get executed on. They're too big of an idea anyway, and you just feel discouraged, and you kind of just wait till next year to set your next New Year's resolution. So my passions, they kind of revolve around sports, fantasy football, leadership, video games, DJing, movies, TV shows. I have a lot of opinions on a pretty wide range of things. And so my goal is every single week to kind of scroll through what's happening in the world and provide my takes on what I think is happening. I think there's no better place to see what's trending than the place that invented trending. And so I want to turn to Twitter and just kind of see what's going on in the world. There's more than one bird now. I don't understand what's going on. Well, here's a good example. So earlier, I was telling you about how World War III is currently trending across the country, and whether you know what's going on or not, anytime World War III starts to trend, things aren't looking so great. And that was like 2 days ago. And right now, hundreds of thousands of Americans are just tweeting about NFL football and the playoffs that are currently happening. And don't get me wrong, I love football, like a lot. It's like my favorite thing in the world. But if 2 days ago World War III is trending and now football is trending, I think we got a problem, specifically in society. It's not to get super deep or philosophical, but we live in this crazy 24-hour news cycle where we literally are talking about the end of the world in the form of memes 2 days ago. And now we've arrived at Drew Brees and what happened in the game. And then tomorrow we're going to be back on cat memes. So it's wild. I mean, if this was 50 years ago, this would be front page of the news, and this is all people would talk about in the newspapers and in society. And it's wild that now every 24 hours something crazier just keeps topping itself. And I hope that all kidding aside and memes aside and jokes aside, that nothing comes of the World War III thing, because it'll be a very short-lived podcast if that's the case. It's just so unreal. 2 days ago, World War III. I can't get over it. That's just enough Twitter for me right now. But to wrap things up, to all the Chads out there that are still hungover from the weekend, and you're sitting in your bed right now listening to this, and you're facing your crippling anxiety, just know that later on in life, there are people like me and adults that, they stay stone cold sober all weekend just to have that same crippling anxiety Sunday evening, surrounded by weird birds and planes flying over and recording your podcast multiple times. There's so many things anxiety-wise that are happening in all of our lives. I know those last couple aren't very relatable to you, but that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now. But you're amongst friends. Strap in, buckle up, and welcome to the Valley of the Sun.